Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Crosse Commission Podcast. My name is Saif Fakadu. On the other line with me is Jake Nazar. Jake, 1 month in, kid. Can you believe it? It's already, starting to feel that, talk about conference tournament time, standings and conference. Like it's a whirlwind. I can't believe almost a month through the season already.
Patriot League keeps you on your toes.
That's for sure.
So just, they'll sneak up on you. Patriot League is airing a nationally televised conference game this Friday. 2 days.
Right now.
March 7th. That might be the earliest a conference. That's a good question. I'm gonna DM our pal Mark with that because he usually has some of the data. But what is the earliest televised conference versus conference lacrosse matchup nationally televised? I think March 7th feels like it might be because I don't think the Patriot League's ever aired it. And the Patriot League would be it because they're always the first to, and I don't think they've ever aired a game this early.
It feels a little bit early. Like I was thinking,
good. I'm not complaining. If you're going to play them this early, air them on TV. I'm not knocking it. If you're gonna play the conference, if you're gonna play these games this early, play them. It does feel quite, March definitely that it was sudden March 1st, very sudden March 1st this year. It happening right on Saturday, just kind of sprung us right into it. But yeah, we are coming, up on the end of, sort of a quiet week this week. Some big games, definitely. Hopkins Cuse, Tambroni Bowl. Two, I would say, pretty consequential matchups I think Hopkins Cuse is quietly big. I mean, always big because Hopkins Cuse, but in terms of kind of pivot point for both teams' seasons, I think really, really big this week, considering where both teams are at. I think kind of quietly, a really, really big one. With Cuse coming off, they beat Utah, but back-to-back losses to Harvard and Maryland. Cuse doesn't have a big win yet. A kind of signature win. They need if you're Cuse and you lose 3 straight games to top 20 teams, that's going to be considering where they start. Cuse is outside the top 10 right now, which is not where they expect it to be on March 5th. If you ask anybody, but particularly Cuse fans,
on this podcast.
If you ask anybody, my whole thing with Cuse was I didn't know if they were going to make the Final Four, but I believe they had the highest floor of anybody in the country. I didn't think they were going to be. If you ask me, pick any team in the top 10 who's not going to fall out of the top 10, I would have said Syracuse. Probably that would have been my go-to answer. So they're not in the top 10 right now. It feels like a team that needs a jolt in their season. Then if you're Hopkins, the last stretch of this ACC, the last kind of leg of this ACC stretch, this is always with the way Hopkins has kind of set this up. You have that Navy game on Friday. Again, quietly looks like could be a very a Navy team that's starting to buck its head a little bit. That's going to be Friday night in Annapolis. If Navy beats Navy, we talked about it just a little bit, but Navy put it to BU. Was up 10-1. Navy, we just mentioned, Navy's playing Lehigh. If Navy gets to 2-0 in Patriot League play and has a Friday night in Annapolis, they could turn out a crowd for that Hopkins game. This is quietly a sort of pivotal point in Hopkins right before Big Ten play. you don't want to be going to Annapolis on a Friday night coming off a loss. I would say, like Hopkins has lost that Navy game twice in the last 3 years.
No, I remember. That's part of the reason why it felt like derailed the other season.
Last year, you could argue it cost them the number 2 seed in the tournament. It bumped them down a seed line. It bumped them into playing Virginia as opposed to playing Maryland.
Yep.
And you could argue that might be the reason they're not in the Final Four last year. Look, we were both at that game at Homewood. Certainly, the Maryland team that played Duke in the quarterfinal compared to the Maryland team that played Hopkins at Homewood was a much different team. But Hopkins would have been much more comfortable in a game in the type of game they played against Maryland than the type of game they played against Virginia. That Hopkins team, I'm going to show you that. So for Hopkins, I'm not saying that. Look, you want to beat Navy, obviously, but you'd like to be coming off a win in case any slip up might happen. Get a win over Cuse in the bag. Going into Big Ten play. So yeah, quietly, that's feels very potentially consequential for the paths for both teams going forward, which we'll get to.
I mean, we talk about it this one. Talk the Pulse. The ACC, the conference needs big wins. I feel like the biggest win right now, I would say, is North Carolina's win over Hopkins. I can't think of a bigger ACC non-con win so far.
Duke beat Michigan and Penn. So let's go. I mean, just going by the media poll and our poll. Virginia's best win is Colgate. Duke beat Michigan and Penn. So that's one. We have Michigan ranked. The media poll has Penn, and we have Michigan ranked. The media poll has Penn ranked. So kind of splitting here, but they're both kind of down there. You have Virginia's Colgate. Syracuse's best win is
Utah.
Generally, I mean,
Jacksonville, Vermont, Towson, Utah.
Yeah. Need a big win. Notre Dame's best win is Georgetown. There's the big one.
But still not as good as North Carolina's win over Hopkins, right?
No. Yeah. So George, you have Georgetown and Georgetown and Hopkins. The Ivy League has Princeton's twofer over Carolina and Duke, which, boy, Princeton, what a
supercharged their season.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm getting 2022 vibes out of Princeton.
Unbelievable what they were able to pull off here in this weekend. We said if you could go 2-2 out of this stretch, it was a win. 3-1 feels like a. I mean, 3-1 is a home run. 4-0 would have been a grand slam. They'd be the undisputed number one team in the country. So, yeah, I mean they're in a tremendous spot. They're number one in the RPI right now. For what that's worth, not much. The RPI is very wonky. There's some hilarious RPI results, kind of right now. That just kind of tells you where the RPI math sort of spits out on March 5th. But their strength of schedule is first, which obviously they've played Maryland, Duke, North Carolina, and Penn State. So, your strength of schedule is going to be pretty darn high when you play those teams. So, yeah, absolutely. Awesome start season for Princeton. Cornell beat Denver and Richmond. some decent wins there. Cornell's got a chance to get a big one over Penn State. No one else in the Ivy. Ivy really is kind of everyone else in the Ivy feels like they're sort of, and this is kind of what we talked about at the start of, or back when we did the preseason, probably when we were trying to like line up Ivy League NCAA tournament, was the last couple years they've gotten 2, and what's the path for the Ivy for more is, well, they've gotten 2 the last couple years with a relatively lack of top-heavy teams. And this year it looks potentially like they could have 2 top-heavy teams. The problem is the bottom looks, right now at least, looks pretty lacking. I mean, Yale's had a disastrous start to the season. Someone asked us, tweeted us, is Yale pretty much in, win the Ivy League tournament mode? And it's like, in essence, in a way, because you have to kind of look at every game as if we lose it. It's you kind of have to approach. No game is a must win until it's a must win. You sort of have to approach it that way for your. If you want to actually like build yourself somewhat of a, if you want to put yourself in a position where you don't need to win the Ivy League tournament, you need to view it as we need to win every game. So, and that's just a crazy position to be in on March 5th. So that's kind of where Yale is at, in essence.
They have 12 games. I was just going to the web page, right? So winning just to be eligible for at-large basis. If you don't, they're in both
seven and what they got to go 7 and or no 3. What do they got to go to? Be eligible.
6. So
12 games left. They're 0-3.
At least, 5 and 6. 9 games, 6 and 3. The rest of the way to finish 6 and 6.
That's like, so it's every game you lose. You can't, it's every game you lose is a significant hit. I mean, it's huge. So the position they're in is at this point is sort of, to a degree, in essence, you kind of have to view it as we are, our path is basically is getting into the Ivy League tournament through there. Penn is going to Penn's always going to play plenty of games within that will give them chances, but this team is, I'm sorry, like maybe this kind of a poll sort of topic. This one of those who you play or how you play different than who you play. I ain't seen nothing this weekend that told me Penn's a top 20 team. Like they just nothing. I mean they weren't in the ball. They weren't in the ball. They weren't never in the conversation in the ballpark with Carolina for a minute, and then they were there for Duke for a half, and then when Duke turned the notch up in the second half by a little bit, that was it. That game was over. Penn on offense they cannot compete offensively with if a team has a modicum of firepower offensively, Penn cannot compete right now.
It's kind of get that escape velocity, you know what I mean? Like Penn can pull you into the mud, kind of what they did to Georgetown. Like it's going to be a game in the fourth quarter, within reach for them. But if you get up 2 or 3 goals, especially in the first quarter, and there's no response from them, they can get out of hand quickly.
And they can't win faceoffs and if you can't win, they can't win like faceoffs to pull them back, keep it kind of a low possession game. Their faceoff play is pretty mediocre. So it's not like a Maryland Luke Weirman kind of situation from last year where maybe your offense is iffy, but you can win a lot of faceoffs, keep the possessions down. The ball is going back to their team. So as good as maybe their defense can be at times, they're playing a lot of defense. So I was the high man on Penn. I thought I kind of saw Penn as an NCAA tournament team because I really liked that defense. I thought their offense made some additions in the offseason. Transfer portal had some different guys coming in at high school. Like I kind of liked what I potentially saw. So far this season, it hasn't been there. Now, again, they're going to have opportunities. It's still young in the season, but man, they just didn't look. They didn't look in the ballpark with those two teams. And against Georgetown, they were there, but they still. Georgetown kind of kept them at arm's length for most of that game too. So Harvard is the one. Harvard's got the Cuse win. Harvard's got a big game against Michigan this weekend as well. That kind of keep an eye on. We've seen Harvard. Harvard obviously we know has the offense to play with the top two in the Ivy and Princeton and Cornell. Defensively for Harvard and faceoffs has been the big question for Harvard the last couple of years. But maybe that's less of against these two teams, less of a concern. Princeton, a potential, as good as everything's been for Princeton, if there's one potential, feels like maybe a Achilles heel, big kind of chink in the armor you're kind of looking at is the faceoff play. Granted, they're playing great teams, but also these are the teams that you're, probably going to be looking at, playing down the line of the tournament. Princeton has, I think is in the 30s, 30% in face-off percentage to start this season. Yes, Princeton, if you just go by raw face-off win percentage, Princeton is 73rd, which one hand, that kind of gives you an idea that Princeton's roster might be, in terms of field players, is definitely one of, if not maybe the best in the country. But that is a pretty significant kind of hit that they have there. Even on an adjusted basis, adjusting for, opponent, 42.2% puts you at 63rd. So if you're Harvard, that's maybe the one. But Harvard adjusted face-off 74th. So, that's where you're kind of Harvard's offense is just lighting up in just raw offensive efficiency. Harvard is first in the country. Just pure goals for possessions. Harvard is scoring the hell out of the ball. So they are the one to watch right now. If there's another team in the Ivy League, it feels like, just because they have, there is offensive, the offensive firepower to punch with these teams right now. Penn doesn't appear to have it. They are the one team maybe they could play some defense, but I just don't think that's when your offense is where it's at. That doesn't matter. Everyone else, I don't know if they have the rosters. Brown, Dartmouth, but Harvard feels like one to watch. But this Michigan game again, that's another consequential one. Michigan needs a win if they want to kind of breathe any sort of kind of life into their season, pretty Big Ten play, or else they're kind of in the same spot they've been in the last couple of years.
They really let Duke off the hook. We can do this for any conference, but Hop figures out North Carolina. Penn State holds down Princeton to start the season.
Yeah,
Michigan closes the door against Duke. And honestly, there's 4 losses for the conference. I was like, but maybe we're underselling how good the Big is this year.
Yeah, the ACC on the flip side, if Duke beats Princeton, Carolina beats Princeton, Virginia beats Hopkins, Notre Dame beats Maryland. That's 4 1-goal losses right there. Syracuse beats Harvard. That's 5. That's 5 1-goal losses right there.
I almost think that the Syracuse one was even more egregious. they were up 5-0.
Syracuse. Yeah, honestly, I'll throw that one out because Syracuse won.
The North Carolina one, they were up 6. I was at Princeton looking at a North Carolina game, about to throw my phone onto the field.
Syracuse won 28 of 32 faceoffs at home and lost by 1. Throw that one out. But Duke losing by 1 to Princeton, Carolina losing by 1 to Princeton, Notre Dame losing by 1 to Maryland. Those are 3 pretty close ones. The Big Ten separated right now is they have 3 teams that look like they're in pretty good position.
Yeah.
Hopkins, though, I do think Hopkins could use another, kind of win to feel good about it. Maryland, Maryland has a bunch of wins, and Penn State, I think, also has some good ones, but Penn State doesn't have a big win yet. I think Penn State needs a statement, kind of. I think Penn State's been very quiet. If you're looking at just kind of how we maybe kind of spin this off into our buy-sell statement, our buy-sell segment, kind of taking stock of these teams a month in. I want to buy stock in Penn State. I really want to. I like what I'm seeing out of this team every time, and I think it benefits them that they don't seem to be getting a lot of attention. But they just and again, going back to, sometimes it's not about who you play, how you play. It's not that who they've played are bad teams necessarily. Granted, Villanova win kind of lost luster pretty quickly. And the
Colgate win keeps getting higher stock. Navy win actually looking mighty impressive now.
But if you go by the how you win principle, 5 over Colgate, 10 over Nova, 6 over Navy, 6 over Yale. And even if you look at their efficiency in these games, adjusted stats are still a little wonky at this point. I think it needs a little bit more time, but their offense is Penn State at this point in time 14th in adjusted offense at this point, 13th in adjusted defense, 9th in adjusted face-off, 10th in adjusted save percentage. Even if you just look at the overall efficiency numbers, just their raw efficiency stats, 17th in offense, 18th in defense, 12th in faceoffs, 11th in save percentage, and a big one for me, 11th in, and this goes with faceoffs, 11th in possession margin. This is a Penn State team the last couple of years. They made a Final Four in 2023 while winning below 50% of their faceoffs. In the 2023 Penn State team that went to the Final Four and nearly took down Duke in that game was 11th in offense, in adjusted offensive efficiency. They were 4th in adjusted defensive efficiency. Jack Frassian was 4th in adjusted save percentage. But they were on a possession plus minus basis. So, on a margin of how many possessions did they win, per game, they were minus 3 possessions per game. 58th in the country. And they made a Final Four doing that. They won just 46% of their faceoffs that year. Their adjusted faceoff margin was 49.5%. They were 40th. They did it with near top 10 offense, elite defensive play that year. And the formula, again, that last year it's kind of cost them. It finally caught up with them. Their offense was still great. Their defense had some injuries. They still had Frassian. It looks, again,
nearly identical stats, right? I mean, in ranks, the offense was a little bit better for 2024. Defense was slightly worse, but that face-off again in the 40s, it's killed them.
Yeah, this year, if this face-off play if Colby Baldwin has really improved his face-off play for them, and overall their possession margin, they've been able to improve on that. They're not turning the ball over. They're not turning the ball over. The first couple weeks, you saw some early turnover issues. Turned it over 32% of the possessions against Colgate, 38% against Villanova. Did not turn the ball over at all against Princeton. Granted, that was in the bubble, but then took it outside against Navy and Yale and did not turn the ball over. And so I want to buy stock in this team because I look at that profile, and I look at what I've seen when I watch them, and that looks like a mighty tasty combination of a really, really good team. What is kind of potentially holding me back a little bit is just a big win. Can you beat just proving it against a top-notch team? And the Princeton game was obviously they lost by 1. But in the bubble, at Holuba Hall, just that's a different thing. If they can go to Ithaca and beat Cornell, to me, that cements Penn State as really being in the conversation among these top 5 teams. So I do want to buy stock. There are other questions I have, but they feel close to being answered. The first couple weeks, their offense was incredibly reliant on Matt Traynor. He has a lot of their production. Like, he was taking a bunch of their shots. Sometimes he was taking 20 shots a game. I've talked about Hunter Aquino. I'm not sure if it's Aquino or Aquino, but I mean, this kid is a stud. Right now, he's leading them. Their assist share, he's 22% of their assist share, leading the team. That's for a freshman midi to do that, and he's got a cannon of a shot from the outside. That's super impressive. Kyle Lehman starting to shoot the ball more, playing an attack down with Traynor. I was big on Lehman last year. He was my freshman of the year pick a year ago. Was in and out of the lineup at times, came on strong towards the end of the year. The more this team offensively can do to alleviate the workload on Traynor, that's the key. And I think we'll really see against Cornell this weekend. Cornell's got a good set of long poles, but Cornell, as we saw against Richmond at times, that defense can be gotten. There are still some issues with that defense, particularly I think some of their short defensive midfield. So if this Penn State offense is kind of for real, then we'll find out, I think. And then face-offs, like how much can they push this? I think their defense is very good. Bucci does a great job with them. Alex Ross is a great defensive player, one of the more underrated, I think, defensive players in the country, because the Big Ten, as Maryland has some great guys, Hopkins, good guys, Van Buren at Ohio State. I think he gets really underplayed. So I'm gonna, I'll go ahead. Maybe gonna go with a light greenish hue here. Safe. I'm not all the way in yet on Penn State, but I want to buy some stock in the Nittany Lions. I think this is a team that if they do go and beat Cornell and Ithaca, I think it is absolutely worth putting them right there as being maybe a real contender to win the Big Ten. And because I think they would match up really strongly with Maryland at face-off, with what Maryland has, having an offense. I mean, Maryland's going to be tough to score on, but they'd have a defense that could score the ball. So I'm not going to go all the way in yet. I need to see you get a big win. And as we always talk about, now the granted they did beat Navy in Annapolis, and I do like this Navy team. So but big. We always, us here, we always want big road wins. Love to see those. So I'm not all the way in yet. Not that neon green, but I want to buy some. I want to buy some stock.
I mean, in terms of a dark horse, it's like a team that people don't talk a lot about. Yeah, I love this Penn State pick because they are like sneaky good. And I'm just remembering last year they were essentially a top 3, top 7 teams. They, as you well remember, they kind of dusted Maryland last year. This is a different Maryland team as the one that got in the tournament. But yeah, was it like 19-9 or something like ridiculous? They lapped the turf. So like I like what your point was saying. Like they have experience of recent experience of beating a Maryland, and if the numbers are eerily similar to their 2019 run and the 2023 run.
Very similar to 23 run, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like maybe that offense isn't the rock and roll show that it was under Grant. Even
it's not that offense, but
it doesn't need to be, maybe, right? And that's right. And it's like it doesn't need to be that because if their face-off is like at this almost near elite level, and they can keep that and sustain. Like, yeah, you can have a top 10-ish, 7 to 12, 8 to 15, 13 type of offense. And as long as you're getting the ball a lot, and you're now +6, maybe +8 in games and possessions, like Tams is going to take that because they have like how many of these years is because you can remember like they kind of got kicked out because of face-off. Legendary of the 2019 with the TD just totally shut them down. But like they have the possessions and because of that face-off units like significantly improved. Yeah, you could take we always say you could take a little bit decrease, but if other areas are like you're getting a significant increase, that tends to even out, if not put you in a better position. So I like that. I mean, just because like I don't think Penn State is scared of any team, Big Ten or out of the conference. They've been knocking on the door 2 Final Four since 2019. Like that's a legitimate like program in terms of like sustained success. So last year I know was a disappointment given what happened in 2023. Me included, thought that would kind of juice them into a Final Four push. But that like under the radar, like maybe not talked about, it's maybe turning to be a benefit for Penn State because it's a lot easier to sneak up on teams where you're not a Notre Dame or Maryland in the news every week. So I like it.
Where are you going, Safe? Who you maybe want to buy some stock in?
I'm gonna do it. I was going to do it, no, but I am buying North Carolina stock. I was going to go with Ohio State, but I am buying North Carolina stock. Now again,
how in are we?
I'm like green Penn State with that because like I know exactly why to be hesitant. We've seen like great regular season years out of North Carolina and especially that like didn't result in deep runs in the tournament for sure. But I think this is a down year for the ACC in general, and they are already kind of, in my opinion, kind of a clear top 2 ACC team. And if that they're able to sustain that throughout the year, like I think they're going to be in a good position to like get a decent seed, and I think they're going to be a tough out. Like I think, for instance, like you speaking of like early season predictions. No one was really wrong. Adam may regret that Virginia pick, but he had he kind of covers that up because he has Hopkins in his preseason Final Four. But like both you and I had Princeton in our Final Four, and it seems to be proven out that the Tigers are a legit team. So losing to Princeton at home like they did the Tar Heels, it's not the greatest thing. And given that game was like kind of neck and neck, and it was the quick turnaround after a game on Friday. I'm not going to knock them. And if that all of a sudden, kind of look at that, their schedule the rest of the way, I was like, kind of liking this Carolina team to maybe take it to the ACC and kind of finish with like a.
I'll I think make the note. Did you say it was Adam who had Virginia in the Final Four?
Didn't he? It was
Ryan. It was Ryan.
I didn't have
just for the record, submitted into evidence. Our final four predictions. Just to kind of look at it.
On point, except for
Safe had Notre Dame, Princeton, Maryland, and Cornell.
I should have banned up for Princeton to win it.
Notre Dame is his champion. I had Cornell, Maryland, Notre Dame, and Princeton with Cornell as my national champion. Ryan had Cornell, Maryland, Notre Dame, and Virginia with Cornell as his champion. His comment was, it was just the order he put him in. It was no order other than alphabetical. And then Adams was Notre Dame, Maryland, Hopkins, and Cornell with Notre Dame as his national champion.
But yeah, I'm lightly buying North Carolina. I think they have a chance to be top 2 in ACC, and if they are able to, lax this rest of with this type of. I really like what they're doing on offense. With young Petro and Duffy, and the defense is not bad either, man. Like, kind of a Petramala resurgence in terms of a defensive coordinator. So, yeah, I'm lightly buying North Carolina.
I like the defense. Look how I'm seeing. Princeton was able to have some success on their shorties, and that's something I do wonder. They're playing good team defense, that was one thing Petro's teams at Hopkins struggled with later in his tenure, was the team defense struggled. And then at Cuse, he wasn't there super long, but it got better, but there was still some of that. They're playing great as a unit, this Carolina defense. And I think they have to, because they lost, obviously, their number one pole, Peter Thielman, and I think I love Paul Barton and Longstick Mitty. Overall, I don't know if they have they don't have like a Sean Light that Notre Dame has. I don't know if they have kind of like some of the Virginia, you look at them compared to Virginia, and I think you see Virginia might have the better athletes that are kind of pole, but I think what Carolina is doing team defensively is better. Where maybe the concern is, I think you saw this with Princeton, is if you are able to run by their shorties, that's where it kind of comes into it. That's where maybe you put pressure on them. When you really force them to have to defend you, and you get them out of this kind of team defensive shell, and you really you force some of these guys to have to play one-on-one defense. Princeton was a team who could do that, because they just have so many guys. You don't have enough poles to cover Princeton. There's just so many guys on there with talent and who can dodge and who can pass. They got Palumbo back there from the mid who could pass. They got Tucker Cameron going, who's a great dodger. And I really liked what Princeton did in that game. It feels like Princeton's still figuring out how they want their offense what the focus of this offense is going to be. We've kind of talked about that. Opponents are really keying in on McAsee. I mean, they are sending quick double teams to him. They're really trying to take him out of the game. And I think at times it is slowing down their offense. And I think Princeton's still trying to figure out what, maybe their main mode of attack is going to be in response to that. We've seen times they've had Kabiri behind the cage. I really liked what they did with this, running it through the midfield. They have so many midfielders that they can go with. They got some of those big guys, Carson Kramer, the guys, in the kind of a second line. I really liked that kind of mode of attack, and I think they did beat up on, especially because Carolina, you look at it, Ty English was sort of their best shorty last year. Now he's playing offensive midfielder. So that's something that maybe I kind of worried about Carolina long haul, but they got a great weapon with Wambach at faceoff. I mean, he's one of the dominant faceoff guys in the country, and that could be them within the ACC in a matchup against Notre Dame. That Notre Dame, as we've talked about, always has middies who can dodge, going to be deep at the midfield. If they're how would they defend the Irish matchup against that? That feels like something Notre Dame would really try and focus on, is attacking kind of those Carolina shorties. So I think Carolina is doing and this is sometimes something I think that you could criticize Carolina for, which is not maybe getting the most out of the talent that's there, not maybe maximizing talent. I think this coaching staff is doing a very good job right now at Carolina. I think they feel like they are a team that's in sync and that is playing well together and getting the most out of itself. That maybe is what I kind of like is kind of how much more is there to push on for this team? I think the kind of question of that is how consistent can they be in the offensive with the production outside of Duffy and Petro? How many more guys can they find that can be consistent every game players? Because you kind of saw it, like the Penn game was great, and then the Princeton game, there were some guys who had good games and some guys who didn't. It's by the end of the year, in a playoff game, how many guys can they rely on outside of those to step up and score outside of those two guys? That feels like, and then, defensively, how many guys do they feel comfortable with matched up against some of the opponent's top offensive players? But I do think it is kind of worth noting because that is something that's often been criticized in Carolina, the coaching staff. And I mean, look, they came in with a lot of, heat on them. I do think they've done a good job, this team so far.
Team to sell?
Team to sell. I am going to sell stock in the Denver Pioneers. And, I think I'm not all the way, I think this is still a good team. I don't think they're going to have a bad season. I think in Big East play, they'll be clearly the second best Big East team. I think they could pick, they have Yale this weekend. I think they're the favorite in that game. Ohio State later on. Could see them winning that game. Duke, non-conference as well. So there's still opportunities for them. I would not be definitely, I definitely think they can win some of these games. I just think for Denver, what I kind of feared going into this season has come to fruition. And it is that what does Denver look like without elite face-off play? We talked about Denver for so long essentially immunizing themselves from what the rest of the country kind of felt, the ups and downs of face-off play at times. Denver ranked for the last 10 years, the worst Denver season in terms of ranking of face-off percentage was 15th, adjusted face-off percentage. The lowest percentage, one season they were 57%. Otherwise, it's 60% year in, year out. Right now, in raw face-off percentage, they are 48.6%, which ranks 48th. In adjusted face-off percentage, they're 49.2%, which ranks 42nd. It has come down to earth like we kind of feared. And the thing is, the rest of the team has held up pretty well from last year's team. But it's dipped just enough that you're taking, so you have from last year a Final Four team that's gotten a smidge where the offense is really, it kind of some ways, kind of still right there. Like last year's team was a solid offense. They had to work for their shots Offensively, they had to work for how they scored. They didn't have a go-to guy. It was your kind of Matt Brown style offense. Keep the turnovers to a minimum. Really work over the defense. Shoot the ball pretty well. Make sure you take great shots, not good shots. All these things kind of associated with Denver, and they had a good, solid overall top 20 offense. They were they were 20th in adjusted offensive efficiency. The offense is basically right there again this year, and I like the pieces that they have. I think you have a guy like Cody Milosky who seems to be burgeoning as potentially maybe he could become an elite player for them down the line. I don't know if he's there yet, but the offense is still good. But the offense is now working. The offense that last year they had to work for their shots. They had to maximize, again, pass up good shots for great shots. They didn't have they didn't have a lot of dodging threats from the midfield to a degree. Like we kind of saw, I remember you saw in that Notre Dame game, the real dodging threat they had was Richie Connell. He was the main guy who kind of really pushed Denver, and he was the guy who was kind of in and out of the lineup because he didn't necessarily fit with the overall game plan of the rest of what they did on offense, which was keep the ball moving, passing, shot from the outside. So this offense that last year needed to really maximize its possessions is still a good offense, now has a lot less possessions to work with. Defensively, still a good defense. It's gotten a little bit worse. The positive is the goaltending is still really good. Maybe even a little better, but it's going to have more pressure on it now. It's gotten a little bit worse and has more pressure on it. So this is still a good Denver team. Overall, granted, I think you kind of mentioned they did get blown up by Cornell and they did lose to Hopkins. Those are the two good teams they played against. So I think that is fair. Like, hey, you do need to. They definitely need to beat Yale this weekend. I think they need to look good doing it. But I'm not pretending. Me selling is not me pretending that they're going to have a very bad season. But kind of what I anticipated, I think, has come true here is that they felt like they were on a very kind of fine margin. If the losing Stathakis and not having that production of the faceoff, and they're kind of, I just didn't see them being kind of team that could withstand losing that production, that position. Other teams, I think we've seen be able to do it. I didn't think they were one, and I don't see them being able to do it over the long haul of the season. And now potentially in the Big East, Georgetown, you got a Georgetown team that's a great defense with great face-off play. That feels like a tough road to hay. A tough matchup potentially for them within that conference. Not a great Georgetown offense, which is the upshot, is that will probably be a very low-scoring game between those two teams. Probably very physical, low-scoring games. Those games will be winnable, but if you're kind of looking at it as like your direct competitor is a team that is a great face-off team and is a very good defense, could be tough to score on. Now, again, the upshot maybe is the face-off thing could be minimized because if Georgetown's offense isn't improved by the time we get to late April, May, it might be kind of like a Georgetown Penn sort of in the game where maybe the possession difference is sort of minimized. But I am selling Denver stock.
Jake, I am slightly selling the Buckeyes. Not because I want them, not because I want to, not because I'm rooting for it, just because I just need to see more. I have to see more. 6-1 with the Virginia win. As each week, maybe this is what we say, like the wrong year to beat Virginia. Just maybe a down year for them. So maybe by the end of the year, the win doesn't look as impressive. Beat Bryant, Bulldogs, tough team, only scoring 7 points. That a little bit disconcerting, especially just given how their offense seemed to have been coming, after that Utah loss, which they still scored 13 in that game, despite the catching it out against the Utes. So, like numbers wise, they're doing much better in terms of the offense than like last year. They're not going to be mistaken for Harvard's offense this year, as you noted how prolific they are. But they're a top 20 offense and adjusted offensive efficiency across references page. Defense is even better than last year, so where they were ninth. They're fourth, a little bit behind.
Everyone is doing better defensively this year. Maybe worth noting.
Yeah, exactly. We're on the case for sure. But it's just a little bit but slight fall off in face off, but save the percentage are as high as it was last year, slightly higher, 58.1. So things are looking well. Just again, not just in the schedule, but quality opponents could be a little bit better. The second toughest out of conference game, they lost. Up to this point. Now they're playing Notre Dame. The old safe would have jumped on this. Buckeye. I don't want to say mirage, but Buckeye early surge. But like I said, if they beat Notre Dame, then buying buying all the Ohio State stock that I have, that is available. But for right now, slight red, just because don't want to get over my skis, as they say. So liking what I've seen so far out of Ohio State, nice little win streak they're on, but got to see more.
Yeah, it's one of these things where we always, again, not about who you play does matter, not about who you play, how you play. It can inform it. And so if you go by the raw, kind of stats, 16th in offensive efficiency overall against this schedule. Shooting percentage, 21st. Turnover percentage, 49th. That's against this schedule, turning it over that rate feels a little concerning. Assist percentage, 28. Which is improved. They're definitely improved. No question. The defense is the way the defense is playing against this schedule is like kind of everything you want to see. I think it's like, okay, the defense is playing this schedule and dominating. So that means that if you're playing a weak schedule and you are still dominating, then you are probably, even when the competition elevates, you're hopefully still going to have a strong team. And I think that still kind of tells us, we know Ohio State had a good defense last year. And we, against the Virginia game we saw, their defense was great. The offense, to me, feels like it's improved, but how improved, that's the question. And I think there might be some signs under the hood of, kind of still turning over a bit. They're shooting it well, but not at a elite level. And I like that last year they have Dodgers from the midfield that can pose a threat that you need, and they have passers now, some guys who can pass the ball put into that mix. But are they guys that you can see really elevating against this top-notch. I think this weekend's really where we find out. Maryland attacked Maryland attacked Notre Dame in that match. When Maryland found the matchups that they like, we talked about it. I said Maryland, I think they really needed to go after Notre Dame. And they needed to be aggressive. When they saw their matchup, they needed to really hunt it. Like, there was a aggressiveness on the offensive side of the ball from Maryland that exhibited kind of no fear. And that was big. You saw Jack Schultz, a true freshman, go at Ben Ramsey, one of the best short sticks in the country, on multiple occasions, score a goal. Eric Spanos. Every time Eric Spanos got switched off a long pole, or even sometimes when he was on Schwitzberg, Eric Spanos was going. Eric Spanos, I thought that was the best game Eric Spanos played in a Maryland uniform that I've seen. It was a tremendous game. So I think this can be a limited game if Ohio State can attack Notre Dame, and if they can have success, go at some of these shorties in the similar way that maybe Maryland did. Find the matchups they like and have success. Okay, it's there. But if Notre Dame controls, that game in a 6-on-6, and Ohio State is not able to, penetrate and not able to, force the issue defensively, then I think that's going to be a concern. Face-off play, that could be, Notre Dame obviously, looks strong there. So I think this game does tell us a lot about where Ohio State is at. I think this is a game where you should, if you've improved offensively enough, what Maryland did, I think, last weekend gives you inroads and confidence that you can be able to hang potential. At least you can have success scoring. I'm not saying you're not going to put a 15 on them, but you can get to 10 or 11 or 12. And if they get to 7 or 8, then all right, So I think this tells us more. So I can see that. All right. Who we are holding on. All right, so I'm going to hold on. I'm trying to figure out a color for hold. Took a color for hold, safe.
Yellow?
Yellow? Okay, yellow. All right. Safe, I'm going to hold on Navy. I'm seeing some good things from the midshipmen. The key I really want midshipmen is, can we handle success? We've seen positive signs in the Amplo era from Navy. We've seen them kind of climb up the escalator a little bit, and then it seems to come back down. How do they seem to be a team that plays better as a underdog than they do. I feel like we've done this segment on them at multiple different points within the last couple of years, but if it feels like Navy is a team under Amplo that has played better as an underdog and as a team that's kind of doubted, backs against the wall, than they are as a favorite. Whereas when they have success going, here it was. This is from March 15th, 2000 and 20 for this is but it was like this time last year. Against Army, Hopkins, and Loyola. This time last year. They were 6-6. Army, Hopkins, and Loyola had a record of 83 and 53 at this point under Amplo. So these were very strong opponents. And they were 6-6 in these games. So these rivalry games, Navy is playing 500 against, top 20-ish teams. Against everyone else, they were 199 and 2 against everyone else. So Navy versus everyone else under Joe Amplo, who had a combined record of 199 and 266. They were 23 and 17. Just like a stark difference. Now, like the point there is the competition disparity against, again, they perform, relatively, the records are relatively the same, but it's, you would figure that Navy should be against sub 500 competition overall. My assumption would be Navy should be beating those teams, and they're essentially a 500 team. Against Army and Hopkins and Loyola in these rivalry games, you'd figure that based on what we've seen overall from Amplo and Navy, you'd be guessing, all right, they're usually underdogs in these games. They'd probably be losing them, but they win. They are just as much as they often lose. They seem to be, when they kind of get doubted, they kind of rise up, and then when they have success, they seem to come back down. They're on a good roll here. They've had a nice start to the season. They beat Towson in a kind of in-state game, 14-10. They lost to Penn State. Penn State's a good start, and then they went all over BU. BU kind of came back into it, but still 13-9 victory. I'm liking what I'm seeing. They are, I think Hayashi, was a bit banged up in the BU game, and that could be a kind of cause for concern, potentially, for them. In they need him, really going long, for the long haul. But this team, they just kind of consistency and their offense, at 38% adjusted offensive efficiency, 27% defense. I really like the Ken Brochard hire on offense. Has been really strong for them. It's similar personnel, but they seem to be just in a much better flow. The purpose with how they pass the ball. They're finding the guy on the backside, or finding guy up top for a step down shot. I really like what I'm seeing there. So, but keep it up. You got Lehigh now. Can you get to 2-0? Hopkins after that. I want to see a kind of consistent run here, because I do think this team has the ingredients to challenge Army in the Patriot League, but you need to kind of keep that up over the long haul.
I'm holding the orange, Jake.
That was also where I was leaning.
I was thinking maybe Army at the beginning. I didn't want to double up service academy, so going with Cuse, not selling, but just not buying right now. I think the Maryland game, we can make not excuses, but we can contextualize it being the first game this early in February outside of the Dome for Syracuse in their history. And it kind of showed, just not really being able to handle the elements, that second half, the way that Maryland was able to weather through it, pun intended. But getting losing to Harvard at home after that big lead with so much going in your favor in terms of face-offs as well, like, it's not that the opponent is so much weaker that it was an embarrassment, but I think that confidence that teams play with, when they're really rolling. Like, I kind of saw that last year in maybe glimpses, but it was there last year. They were rocking and rolling. That no one was buzzing. They were just they were loving it. And I can't help but think, like, that loss hard. Maybe they're already over it. Beating Utah by 10, going on the board with good job with you. But that's the kind of what's expected. I think that loss is just like really kind of was surprising for fans, again, just like the way that it started out for Cuse and not being able to hold on. Like, I do wonder if that will, like, kind of give you a preview of what, like, may come the second half of this, or last 2/3 of the season. So, but it could be the total flip. Go out on Sunday, drop 15 on Hopkins. Go get the win, and things are rolling again. But it was a little bit apprehensive now about Cuse in terms of long term. I don't want to put too much of a one loss to Harvard, but yeah, like I said, it was a bit surprising and borderline shocking.
The thing I think is it just the one loss to Harvard? Because you have the Maryland game on top of that, and I don't think I was the first one who was saying, like, I don't think this game should be. I was the first one trying to say not to make too much of the Maryland loss. I think that's fair, especially since what we've seen since Maryland. But I do think we're at a point with this team where I don't think they need to get. It's not overreactive to suggest the issues we've seen with this team are over a long enough kind of period of time where it's worth kind of pointing, like, you can kind of point out there's worth kind of thinking of things to move around here. What I mentioned on when we did the live show after the Harvard game about the offense. This has been the issue with the offense for how many seasons now? The lack of true dodging threats. And the fact that it's too easy to take away, opponents take away. I mean, for Hopkins, the way for Hopkins to defend them is going to be, you're going to put Scott Smith on Spallina,
Mm-hmm.
and that's going to take him out of the game. And then you put probably Kilrain on maybe Hiltz, and that he's out of the game. And then you got to worry about maybe one other guy in Leo coming out of the box. And how often, and Leo's coming out of the box, if he's coming, how often do you play him coming out of the box? Do you play him every possession? Do you, but after the midfield, does Hopkins feel threatened by Syracuse's midfielders on a lot of their shorties? I don't think so. And if your attackmen aren't going to be able to penetrate the defense and get things moving on the team's long poles, and then your midfielder, you don't have midfield threats drawing slides, where's it coming from? By nature, the way this team beats you is what we talk about. They dodge to feed. They're going to dodge to pass, and then they're going to try and get teams to react by how quick they move the ball and by the fact that they can, their stick skills, that anywhere on the field is a threat of behind the back, or, they can, if you give them space in tight, they, the whole field, they can kind of make a threat. I really think it's time to start thinking about stuff like the best dodger on Syracuse's team is Michael Leo. He's the most dangerous guy if you're asking me who's the guy who you feel when the ball's in his stick, he's the most threatening to run past his guy, really get things started, it's him. He should be at attack then. You need to put him down their attack. He shouldn't be running mid. He should not be running on the midfield. You put him at attack. You get the ball on his stick. And you make opponents, you make the other team put their best long pole on him. And do you know what then that does potentially by, result is you get somebody else possibly on Joey Spallina.
That's good. Yeah.
And then maybe you're starting to open things up for start pulling on different levers. And if Joey Spallina then can draw a different matchup and Joey Spallina can get some more space and more freedom, then you're really starting to open up more of the field and you're starting to attack team. That I think is really something worth considering. So it's not crazy to kind of look. I think it's Cuse again. And say, hey, yeah, we don't like overact like the season's over, yada yada. This team, this group of players, Gary Gates a failure. But it's also saying, hey, like we have seen these group of guys for a bit now, and there hasn't been a lot of changes. Maybe it's worth changing some of the pieces around a little bit. It's possible. Is the group of you see right now in this configuration what's going to get Cuse to the Final Four? It might not be. That's okay. It could be that group of players, but maybe in different spots. That is what I think is entirely feasible. And so that's absolutely something I think that's worth looking at for this team. Is this as it's working right? Is this as kind of constituted right now the best use or really working? And it feels like it might not be. That might be where you need to start changing it. Look, Notre Dame. How did this whole Notre Dame thing start? They still had Kavanaugh. They still had Dobson. Still had Chris Kavanaugh. All these guys. It took Jake Taylor going in that lineup at attack to kind of bring it all together. That's what made them the ultimate kind of the pick your poison. You had to defend Jake Taylor on the crease and then Dobson back there, and it was they could, when we talked about, they could defend. You had to defend everywhere on the field. Sometimes it takes a change at different spots to, bring these different things together. Maryland a couple years ago, we talked about it. Bubba Fermo was a 20-goal scorer. They had him go play short stick D midi, to bring in John Donville because he opened more things up at that midfield. Daniel Malt's been a great player. Like he moved out so Keegan Khan could come in and attack. Like these are different things worth considering. And that for Cuse, it's not even like we're talking about like bring different player in. It's just like I think he moves some of his personnel around. I think that's worth considering.
That's it, or what's preseason versus today?
Predictions. I guess we're just kind of we kind of did that with our bye. Yes, Carolina, Penn State, we're kind of be more high on. Syracuse, Denver, we're maybe less high on. Just kind of comparing, look at the poll, seeing who we were, how these teams have kind of moved up and down compared to, 1 month in, so far, Maryland's obviously the big riser. So far, the Terps started at in our poll. They started. So here we go. We can look at our preseason. Go back and look at our preseason top 20. Notre Dame, I don't think ding too much. We're still at number 2. Syracuse is the big kind of got to ding the orange. They have kind of fallen off. Maryland is the big riser. They're up 4 spots from our poll. Virginia is, got to give the full red treatment. Virginia fell out of our top 20 this week. I still have the Cavs at 20. I thought they played a good game against Hopkins and kept them in there, but they are. I mean, in the media poll, they're at 20 as well. They're hanging on by a thread. It's the game against Maryland on next Saturday will be huge for Virginia. Yale. Also, maybe you need a darker shade of
just black.
Just black.
Black with white letters.
Hang on. There it is. Yale. As we said, Yale. It's a situation. Yeah, Penn State was 12th. So we'll give them a little kind of lightish green. Army 13th. That Army UNC game. Remember, Army beat UNC a year ago. Could be definitely a fun game. Chapel Hill a little bit. Towson. Oh man, that's. I don't want to talk about that.
We dared to dream. We dared to dream.
I did. Yeah. Villanova. Yeah. Not a reliable top 20 vote this year, Villanova. I got 1 week out of it though. So, Carolina. How could I forget? The big riser. Tar Heels up. How many spots?
13.
12.
I mean, one time there were 13, there were 4.
12 spots. My goodness. All right. Well, it's interesting to check back on that in about another month or so.
Nailed the preseason though, top 4. I mean, Cuse sucks. It is interesting we all have Cuse's second and third, but none of us had it as a Final Four prediction. Yeah, I was saying, none of us a Final Four predictor. Even though we were like, oh yeah, number 2, easier, number 3, preseason poll, no doubt.
We covered all our bases, Other than what we missed, we nailed everything.
Was that line from the Wolf of Wall Street? Don't judge me by my makes, judge me by my misses because they're so rare.
I'm so close. My misses are so close.
We're right there, Really, we were bullied. Really, we were bullied into putting. She said, "No, I'm just kidding." We really did believe it.
It's like in golf. It's like in golf, and like they missed the putt. You're like, man, he's such a great putter. Look how good his misses are.
It's right on the lip.
He always leaves it right within 2 feet of the hole.
Exactly. But buying and selling, Jake. Let's chat about a few games here. First game in our appetizer section. The Harvard Crimson host the Michigan Wolverines. Jake had a bit of a conversation about Harvard, Michigan. You're right. They kind of look at their schedule superficially, and it kind of reminiscent of like what the years in past, in terms of like close losses to Duke, and kind of so and so out of conference wins. But the Carolina game, they didn't really show up to play in terms of final score. But given how well Carolina's played, like you know, you're not going to ding them so much for like losing that. It is Carolina's right now as a top 5 team. The Duke game, though, I will have to, we have to dole out accountability. You can't let them off the mat like you did with the last couple of minutes there. In terms of like right there, you have it on the road. Like actually, Duke would have been still not a top 10 team, if they had that loss, but that was a top 10 win potential at the time. It just we were kind of digging like Richmond. Same thing with the Cornell game. They made it happen with Virginia, but again, maybe this is not the year to beat Virginia. Like the common theme, but like you got always be closing. Glengarry Ross. Like YouTube streamer. The quick side note, just because like I always put this in our chat. Like maybe my favorite streamer right now. Like it's free, which is wonderful. But yeah, they had Glengarry Ross on recently. Just kind of been having it a little bit on repeat or just in the background. Just some wonderful scenes. Give a shout out to Quiz Show with Ralph Fiennes losing the Oscar award. So my favorite one, but they recently updated it. But streamers aside, just kind of always be closing. And Cornell was the one closing, despite Richmond having that game on, doing what they needed to do to like pull out a victory, kind of like push on the gas or doing it. Cornell just turned it on and kind of 2 weeks in a row after maybe they got to get punched in the face before they wake up. That Hobart game was also, kind of a comeback. But with Michigan and like Richmond not closing out this weekend, Michigan not closing out Duke. Again, I don't really see Michigan being in the at-large race, but if they were going into this Harvard game, 5-1, with the one loss being to a top 5 Carolina team, the case would be strengthened. But yeah, like looking at Harvard, at home, like really could like kind of make a play for being kind of comfortably in the top 10. Decent schedule, had the great Cuse win. That Colgate loss, again, it's better and better, just given how well Colgate's winning. But yeah, Harvard could really set themselves up nicely, beating Michigan, essentially going out of the conference, 4-1, just before they, host their bitter rival Yale on, alternate, the Ides of March on March 15th. But and then traveling down to Princeton. Yeah, I may go to that one, Jake. Harvard at Princeton. They end up being like a kind of a top 10 battle. But Harvard does what we think they're going to do in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, like I said, kind of interesting crossroads for both. I think Michigan needs this win to just kind of like solidify themselves as a tournament capable team. We've seen what they've been able to do 2 years running in the Big Ten tournament. But you don't want to like just live on the edge like that all the time. Helping yourself having some wins, not in the actual conference tournament time, just put you in a better position. If not for seeding, just at least a more preferable like first round matchup. So, but with Harvard, I think like maybe jumped the gun a little bit in 2023. Thought maybe like that 2022 run was going to like springboard them into like having a nice run of success, but like. After 2 years of kind of sputtering in space, this may be the year for Coach Byrne and the Crimson to like really kind of, as we can kind of pointing out with St. Joe's and Richmond in our preseason, like seeing if they're going to make a leap. Maybe this is the year that Harvard makes a leap, finishes top 3 in the Ivy, gets into the tournament, and but like I said, don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. But yeah, this is still a March game, early March, but kind of a really important one.
I think it's Michigan. It's even beyond. Like, do you have the team this year to? We talked about so much of their. They played with the last couple of years. was this great synergy of confidence. They played with a confidence and a swagger. They didn't play afraid. They didn't play afraid of anyone when they got on these runs. Like they seem to fully believe that they could beat anybody. But I feel like a lot of that was driven by that when they got going. We talked about it. They had the face-off play with Wheatfeld, and then Rowlett before that, and with Wheatfeld. They had the offense that was really powered. I mean, the offense was strong by itself, but you powered it with that great face-off play. Mikey Bain, Zawada for that. Last year, Justin Tiernan scored a bunch of goals. It's just this super potent combo. And it's like it was a runaway train when they got going. And they played with a swagger, a confidence when they got rolling. And they just seem to feed off of that energy. Different teams feed off of different vibes, and you need to when you make a run, that's a great way to make a run. It's kind of like the team in March Madness, kind of coming to basketball. It's like who can get hot from everyone play the team who can get hot from 3-point range, because they can get hot in a hurry, and before you know it, they've shot you out of the tournament. That was kind of like what Michigan was like. Maybe you feel more comfortable playing the team who's a great defense. You hate playing the regular season, the great defensive team in the regular season, because Tuesday night, when you're in a long run of games, you have to go play that really good defensive team who's going to slow it down, and the trap game. But maybe you don't mind playing that team. It's kind of harder to put together those repeat performances with playing lower scoring games. It's harder to feed off of that. It's a different vibe feeding off of defense or feeding off of that sort of type of team. You know what I mean? We did see Maryland do it last year, but it's a little different. If I look at Michigan this year, I don't know if they have if they're going to make a run. I don't know that and I've spoken this. I don't think it's going to be the way it was the last couple of years. Like they don't look like a great face-off team. I don't see the offense that I've seen the last couple of years. I think it's a solid offense, but I don't see the hitters, the home run guys I saw the last couple of years. So I'm not saying this team can't win the Big Ten, can't win maybe the Big Ten tournament, but do you want to win the Big Ten tournament having to play from the whole way back? Maybe you want to win the Big Ten tournament playing from, I don't know, maybe you want to be like the top 2 seed, that's right now. That seems like that'd be a heck of a tough road to accomplish, but look, I mean, it's, or at least
I was going to say 3-4 because it feels like first two, like, because you're skipping that week, it has caught them, put them in the ass a couple of years.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, or at least, hey, if you're the 3, maybe you play at home.
That's the first game at home, and then
that
second round.
Instead of having to go and I think last year they did play at home.
Rutgers would say with 5-6.
For that first year, they did the whole thing.
Did I use that Batman Begins skit where I was
23,
like,
I think 23. I think they did beat Ohio State at. I think they did beat Ohio State at home, but nonetheless, it's just do you want to put yourself in that position where it feels like you're climbing out of such a hole? Go in with a couple of wins in Big Ten play. Go in with feeling like we can compete. I'm not saying they won't feel like they can't compete. That's the wrong phrasing, but that you have beaten these teams this season that you have a nice, footing on yourself, nice run of momentum. That it's not like, man, we kind of got to, do it again. I think you want to have yourself feeling like you have beaten some of these quality teams. You've beaten a Harvard out of conference, gone on the road and done it. You've proven to yourself, if you do have to, that you've gotten these scouts. Look, a lot of these guys who have made those runs are gone now. It's a different group. So I think that's why it's important is, I don't know that look, maybe it will be for Michigan. I don't know if that path is going to be available. And again, as you say, I don't know if you want to count on that again. It's just a tough thing to count on again.
No, we have fun. We're like, I made that Batman Begins reference with Carmine Falcone. Or like, you never tasted desperate about Hopkins like not being able to do anything. It's like, Michigan could do that because they're a desperate team. But you're right. You don't want to always live on the edge, like if you don't have to. And I thought last year was a big moment because despite like a miserable middle of their season, they beat Maryland. That 12-1 game, in the regular season. And then,
how much did it take? How much did it take out of them in that game against Denver? Like they had nothing in that Denver game, first round.
Oh, and that's your point. Like the first year, I think that first year, the 2023 was like so magical, being able to make it.
They didn't know, like they didn't belong.
That's exactly what we always said. You don't even know we don't know. It's like, we shouldn't be in this. And they just got hot. And with your point about the face-off was, they were exquisite in face-off that year, even better than the 2024 year, by 1 or 2%. But they got hot back-to-back. Ohio State beat Penn State. The Terps game. Love the handshake scene with him and Tilts. Just great drama. That 1 point win against Cornell, which was a Final Four like caliber team. And then get kind of punched in the face by Duke, but still at points like were punchy themselves. But Duke just was built to last a little bit more.
And it's like last year, it was like, nope, like lightning doesn't strike twice. It's like you can't just like it's sort of like, what is it? What's kind of the joke? You can't not study for the test.
Well, I was just going to say the same. Like, you gotta put. It's almost like a reality show. You gotta put in the work.
like one time they didn't study for the test. They pulled an all-nighter and they like rolled in 10 like right before the bell. This teacher speaking here, kids, study for the test, kids. Like they pulled it right before the bell. They have the sunglasses over their eyes and they aced it, and they're like, whoa.
It was eerily a similar year. They had that mid-season just like collapse, but they had the Maryland win in 2023 by 5, won by 1 in 2024. But the team pretty much started the same. Early season loss to Virginia. The Marquette loss in 2023 was a little odd, but it had the same little start. Then the middle of the year was a collapse with a Maryland win to hold on, and then they just turned it on in Big Ten play.
The other thing was the Penn State game had like whiffs of Penn State, and like once they got down, just being like, all right, you know what, we're good.
We're gonna get a home game. Yeah,
like, and so actually, it cost them a home game. The Penn State losing that game because they had to go on the road.
Case in point, don't rest in your laurels, folks. If you can win it, you can win it.
And it was like they did it again.
But they were killing them, 16-4.
Penn State. No, like, look, Michigan was going to win the game, but Penn State definitely got down by like 5. It was like, okay, you know what?
Wasn't familiar with their game, Wolverines.
It's like Michigan decided, man, last I didn't need to study. I don't need to study. I aced it, and it's like, I don't know. So I just look at in this matchup in particular, their defense has had some great performances this season. Again, quality competition feels like so. Marquette, they held to 1 goal. Canisius, they held to 2 goals. How you play we talk about how you play. So look, you hold any team to 1 and 2 goals in the shot clock era. Okay, they held Duke to 8 goals. I think their defense here is certainly legit. So that does bode against the Harvard offense. Do they have the pieces, the horses to hold Harvard? They got Billings coming from Princeton. Does that bode nicely for against Harvard? It does. Face-off play, not a strength, not a Harvard strength either. Offense has been very. The concern is the offense is so widely the disparity against the wins. The offense has been good. The losses, the offense hasn't done anything. And the losses are to the only two remotely remote top 20 teams. Marquette, Cleveland State, Hobart, Canisius. What does that against Harvard? I don't know. This is a top 20 team. Is Harvard's defense comparable to Duke and Carolina? I don't think so. I do think Michigan will be able to have some success. I mean, Marquette scored 16 goals against Harvard. And Marquette scored transitive properties kind of, Colgate scored 19. Does feel like there's some inroads for Michigan. They have, but their offense does need to bring it to a degree. Like that Duke game, too often they just beat themselves. That third quarter, they had 2 shots in the third quarter, period. They weren't giving themselves opportunities. Their defense was keeping them in the game. It was protect. And the offense needs to come. The opportunities will be there against Harvard. I mean, Harvard, that defense is a warning, is a massive red warning sign. Some of it you can say is face-off play because they're winning at 31%. But nonetheless, you're giving up 19 against Colgate. The Cuse game, the defense actually in some ways played well, considering the face-off disparity. Then the Marquette game, 20-16. Harvard's plan, I mean, this in some ways, Harvard's possession disparity is crazy. I mean, they've had 3 games nearly double-digit possession disparity. I don't know if Michigan's the team that's going to do that because Michigan hasn't been strong either, but Harvard's kind of we talk about with Virginia. I mean, Harvard's playing different sport almost. It's like basketball. I think the opportunities will be there for Michigan in this game. It's about cashing in on them.
Next game, Jake. The Ohio State Buckeyes travel to South Bend to play the defending champion Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Now, that I kind of alluded to this in our buy and sell portion, but this is it. This is what I was kind of saying. It's from what I'm seeing at Ohio State, just like to see that against the team of this caliber. Now, the Virginia win was nice. Again, the way they won was very nice because Hopkins essentially barely survived Virginia, playing at home, and the way that the Buckeyes were able to dismantle Lars' offense was impressive. We couldn't see it for some reason, BTN network, to go, but for the result was still the same in terms of hey, surprising win, kind of shows that maybe this Buckeyes team is going in the right direction, especially that first game loss to Utah, kind of throwing me off for sure. Notre Dame though is a different animal than this present Virginia team, and playing at home after losing to Maryland by 1. I think this may it's such a spectacle affair. Traveling all the way to Atlanta, coming back to the confines of home. That I think Notre Dame's going to be able to regroup, and that's why I was kind of saying I just not that I don't believe in Ohio State, but I got to see it. And it kind of feels like, this is what we say, those opportunities. It's not going to be easy playing on the road and stuff like that. But, this is the kind of game that can really catapult you into the top 10. I mean, North Carolina jumped up significantly, after they won the Hopkins game. So, this could be a similar boom for Ohio State in terms of their national prominence and people taking them seriously as a potential Final Four caliber team. So don't think they're going to be able to pull it off, but going to be a great game to watch on ACC Network on Saturday at 2:00.
Yeah, I'm curious what the response for Notre Dame is. Last year for this team after the Georgetown defeat, they came back in the Maryland game and got up on them early and kind of really held them at bay throughout, kind of just a really authoritative victory. 14-9 in that one. They beat Ohio State in a game that was kind of sneakily closer than kind of remember. And then after that, obviously, just ripped off the rest of the way and won the championship. After the Virginia lost 8-12 in the end of the regular season in 2023, they beat North Carolina 18-9, and then went on to win the championship. Notre Dame hasn't suffered back-to-back losses since 2022. They lost 11-9 to Maryland, and then they went to Columbus and lost 14-11 to Ohio State. That was the last time the Fighting Irish have lost 2-0. That was part of a 3-loss-in-a-row stretch. Obviously, that sunk that season really for the Fighting Irish. From there, since that loss to Ohio State, they are 30-4, 33-4, 37-4, 38-4, 41-5. Pretty good.
Pretty good.
Indeed. Yeah, this game last year, Ohio State's offense did have a decent amount of success. They kind of implemented the Georgetown game plan, the long possession, average possession length 52 seconds in that game, 43 seconds before they took their first shot, and averaged 1.26 shots per possession. That's high. I mean, that's on average getting off at least one shot. So definitely they're getting one shot per possession. So almost no shot, almost no turnovers. Like we're not even getting a possession. We're not even getting a shot off, and several possessions where we're getting another opportunity on the cage. They only turned the ball over Ohio State in that game 9 times. And the other key was Notre Dame offensively in that game, average possession length about 50 seconds, and they didn't really get into a set until about 40 seconds. I think Ohio State, you're going to see them do a lot of what Maryland did last week, and Georgetown did as well to Notre Dame. Clark talked about this a lot on the broadcast. I think the play against Notre Dame this year is, at least until we see a switch, is going to be really packing it in defensively. We talked so much. The way they beat you last year was they attacked you from anywhere, but they had Pat Cavanaugh behind the goal. They had Jake Taylor in the crease, and they had Dobson up top. So Where do you want to get beat? You put too much attention to Pat behind the goal. Okay, there you go. You can slide too much to him. I mean, he can beat you obviously off the dodge, but he could pass to anywhere if you slide too much to him. If you slide off the crease, there's Jake Taylor. If you slide maybe adjacent from the wing, they have shooters up top with Dobson. Then if they dodge from up top because they had Faison who could dodge, Dobson who could dodge, McLean's a former attacker. Well, if you slide off the crease, there's Jake Taylor. But if you don't respect Dobson enough as a shooter, he could hammer it. They had the outside shooting threat with Dobson. This year, the outside shooting threat for Notre Dame is not quite there to the same degree with Dobson gone. Faison's one of the best players in the country on the offensive side, but probably maybe the best athlete in the country, but not a shooter in the same way. Notre Dame shot 23% in the Maryland game. In the Georgetown game, they shot 31%. I think there's a clear view that against Notre Dame, you need to take away the slam dunks, the high percentage looks for Taylor or for, anyone else getting inside. So they're going to look for pack it in long possessions. I think draw out the clock, even draw the clock. For Notre Dame, they're going to want to get out ahead, push transition. Maryland did a fantastic job of getting back in the hole and denying Notre Dame transition opportunities. That'll be the key for Ohio State is, are they able to do that to the same degree? Because if Notre Dame gets transition opportunities, I don't think Ohio State has the capability to get into a shootout with them or run with them in the same degree. Maryland was able to. That's what Maryland did. Not only could they deny them transition opportunities, Maryland scored a man down goal in that game. They scored 3 transition. They scored off a restart, off the offsides. They had 2 transition goals. So I don't know if Ohio State's going to be able to do that. I think Ohio State has some talented, athletes. They usually do have some good athletes, but it's not really their game. So I think Ohio State's going to go for force Notre Dame into long possessions, and then on their side of the field, the question is Maryland was comfortable with playing long possessions and 6-on-6, but Maryland, that was what Maryland got, was kind of those 4 key goals in the unsettled situations. For Ohio State, if it's more of kind of what Georgetown did, and it's long possessions offensively, my question is, where do the goals come from elsewhere? Because Georgetown was able to keep it close that way, even after they got down 6-0, and they were able to have success. Don't turn the ball over. Draw it out these long possessions. Have a lot of shots on goal. Give yourself a lot of opportunities. Chip away at it. It seems to be a way of kind of like the Villanova Georgetown basketball kind of that game from way back in the day. This Notre Dame offense is so high powered, and if you get yourself into you don't want to run, you don't want to get them, you don't want to go a full court game with them. Truly make it a half court game, both sides. But Maryland was able to find goals in that area. For Ohio State, where does that come from? Man up, potentially, you need to steal from. If you're Ohio State, are you going to win faceoffs? And that's difficult. I don't know. Notre Dame won a bunch of the faceoffs in both of the last 2 games. And even from we talked about Notre Dame maybe under-seasoned, in comparison to both those opponents. It feels like is a Notre Dame team that has won faceoffs the degree they have. The Georgetown game, they lost the ground ball battle, but they really won it against Maryland. I'm just not sure. Are they going to really play that kind of game again? It feels like this. You're just going to see a much better game out of them this week. I think you probably, it feels like you should probably see the best game they're going to play. They probably played this season. They're going to be back at home. They're going to get another week of practice. And if they win as expected, I think they figure to get another dive possessions from Will Lynch. I think that you're going to these kind of the mistakes that they had against Maryland. I think you'll see them cleaned up, and I think Ohio State could maybe keep this kind of within that, using sort of the game plan that Georgetown did. That might keep it close. Might keep it within cover range, but does that get you over the hump? I don't know. Again, against the Notre Dame team, they made some mistakes against Georgetown. They made some mistakes against Maryland. Do they make mistakes again here? I don't know. If they do, Ohio State's got to capitalize. I mean, you gotta take the chances where you get them. That'll be a key. I don't know where Ohio State's getting the extra goals from. Georgetown didn't get them. We talked to Georgetown. They got it to 11-10 or 11-9, like within a goal, and then they blew a clear, and Notre Dame got it to 11-9. That game was over. Maryland got some extra goals. Where's Ohio State's extra punch coming from? That's kind of my question.
I think if there are over 18 faceoffs in this game, like Ohio State's going to be in trouble.
They got to win. If there's over 18, they got to win what? At least 7?
That's why I feel with that as a barometer, because like I think if it gets into 2023, like that just means it's a more high scoring game, which is I think favors Notre Dame. And kind of what we're kind of talking about with Penn, like if you can't get that escape velocity and get out of Penn's clutches, they're just going to turn it into a rock fight or a fight in the mud, as we always say, for a night. But so yeah, if Ohio State can keep this like a 9-7 type game, they want this as slow as possible with like both teams not getting into double digits. If that's the scenario, then Ohio State has a puncher's chance. But yeah, I think like if Notre Dame gets to you kind of always say first to 10, like I think if Notre Dame gets to 10, then that could be a sign that Ohio State's going to be in trouble, just because like I think Notre Dame could get up to the mid teens and just not sure Ohio State can get to that level under this particular team that they're facing. Jake, moving on to our kind of our mid-tier game, which is not made by any stretch of the imagination. The Cornell Big Red, your Cornell Big Red, and our boy host the Penn State.
Many call me the one of the biggest Cornell fans out there.
They call you the biggest Red. You're the new Andy Reid. So you're the Maryland Andy Reid, Big Red. Jake, this is a big game, I think, for Cornell. Like this is like just we got to make sure that no potential rivals come up. Like this is your opportunity to smash a Big Ten team that's playing real well, that had a chance, to beat the other Ivy team that's right now at the top of the polls, but that being Princeton. So for Cornell, kind of like step for step type of thing with Princeton, like beating Penn State would be maybe doing so without the necessity of overtime. Maybe a way for people to show that hey, Princeton is not far and away the best team in the Ivy. It's this team in upstate New York that's still there. So I think this is a really good opportunity for Cornell in terms of like making sure that hey, we're still in this top 4 discussion, and just winning every week is good. Penn State though, just kind of what we were talking about previously, just like our buy and sell section. Penn State really kind of under the radar, and if this is real opportunity for them to pounce and get a scalp, get a top team taking them down and giving them some ammunition for the at-large race if they're unable to win the Big Ten AQ. And this would be a marquee win. This is a Cornell team that's in everybody's top four. Some higher, but just them, Princeton, Notre Dame, and Maryland. Are kind of like the consensus top four. And for Penn State to be able to go up to upstate, go up to Cornell in upstate New York and beat them, I think that would bode really well for Penn State's tournament chances and just profile and potential seeding and all that stuff. So I think it's going to be a really interesting game in ESPN Plus at noon. But I'm leaning the Nittany Lions just a little bit. I know I that's what I do every year. I kind of undersell Cornell and then they fight me. But there have been times, especially last year, where I was all on Cornell, and that bit me as well. So maybe I'm in a lose-lose situation. But I got faith in the Tams. I kind of like how they're doing things on the quiet tip right now. Not really, in the papers or on Twitter. A lot of teams are, a lot of people are not paying attention to them in terms of the glamour teams. But I think maybe that's what they don't mind that. They've already been close to that inner, that super high level of championship level team, and they just always fall short. And those seasons they came in with a lot of fanfare, especially that 2019 team. That it's a rock show lacrosse team, and I think they're just more concerned about, hey, we want to get to that Final Four and win it. We don't care if we're on the top of everybody's minds in terms of top team. So maybe this kind of under the radar approach, is going to bode well for Penn State. And for me, I'm kind of feeling it. I think maybe they're going to be able to pull the upset against Cornell.
I'm super excited for this game. These two teams, it's become a pretty marquee game on the docket each season. It always does seem to go under the radar a bit. I think kind of maybe where it falls in the calendar, because it's not like early in the season. It was one of those kind of first big games in February, and then we're kind of in that, as we talked about, sort of maybe that quiet stretch before conference play picks up. But these two teams have certainly played some, and also, they've played some, they're always in around the top 10. 2020 they played, I think that might be the case. The best game I think they played together was that 2020 game. Teat and
Lots of history. Lots of history that day.
Yeah,
oh my God.
That's the thing is since they've come back from COVID, I think that a lot of their games have kind of been they haven't played a real banger together. But that game in Charlotte was unbelievable. And it was was that the last game right before the season got shut down?
Literally the last lacrosse game.
Weekend. It wasn't the last game. It was the last weekend. I'm gonna say, or
there was the mid weekend. It was it was the last.
I think it was last week.
Wasn't it a Sunday too? So it was literally the last game of the weekend.
Yes, because Penn State played a Tuesday game after that. They played Furman, RIP. But I believe it was the last. Yeah, because here we go. Penn-Yale or Cornell-Yale, March 14th postponed. So it was the last weekend. That's Sunday. And it was man, it felt like that was going to be a Final Four potential rematch. 18-17. Teat 3-3. Cornell faceoff, man. Angelo Petrakis scored the winner with 8 seconds left after Penn State. Grant Ament, most classic Grant Ament stat line possible. No goals, 6 assists. TJ Malone played in that game. He had 4 goals. My goodness, what a game.
18-17. Just
18-17. Michael Long played in that game. And he's still here. So there you go. That's our last tie to this incredible game. Is Michael Long played in that game. He had 1 goal and 4 assists. Pete Milliman was the coach of Cornell. So since then, or 2022, they played 16-15. That was but that was the year Penn State was bad. And it was kind of, no one really pitched in. Penn State's won the last 2 of these. 23, they shut down Cornell 10-6 in Ithaca. Defense they strangled them, choked them out. And then last year, dump trucked them.
that was
Just out of just a shocker out of nowhere. And that was really the first warning sign we had about Cornell's offense, or defense rather. Trainer and Malone were just unstoppable. 7 goals for Matt Trainer, 7 points for TJ Malone.
the history is great. 23 wins by Cornell, 24 losses. Penn State is 5-3 in the last 8, but
are those
Cornell's 5-5 if you go to the last 10. And
what's it since it's become the Tams Bowl?
So Tams
left in after 2010, I believe.
Okay, so that's 5-3 for Penn State. So 2016 is the first game essentially when Tams is in charge. It's a gap from 2003 to 2016, and then Penn State's won 5 of the last 8. They won back to back, 16-17. Cornell won 2018, 2019. Penn State won, and then we've gone over the last 4, 2020, 2022. Being absolutely explosive games, but then Penn State kind of taking it to Cornell the last 2 years, especially last year's 20-9 victory. So
now you said it restarted in 2016?
Yeah, there was 2003 was last game between the two, 13-year hiatus, and then in that time, Tams leaves to go to Penn State.
Yeah, so Penn State won 2016, 2017. Cornell won 2018. Penn State won 2019.
It kind of rejuvenated. There was a huge gap from 61 to 2001. They hadn't played. Then they played like a 3-game stretch, and then kind of pretty much yearly since Tams has been there. 2016.
It's a good series. Penn State obviously plays a bunch of the Ivy League schools. Now they've got, they paid Penn. Now they've swapped in Princeton. This is a tough one because I think Penn State could have a lot of success. Last year they had a bunch of success on. I think they could have success in the Cornell. There's something about the Cornell defense. Their shorties are not. Their posture, the way they're not engaged, the way Richmond had a bunch of success on them early, and Cornell was able to. They played strong. It was an encouraging finish for them. They only gave up 1 goal in the last 15 minutes, but the way you see Cornell's defense, defend. When guys dodge from up top, their shorties don't seem ready to defend the dodge. It's their stance is just too upright. It's too fixed. They're not ready to get hands on guys. And so the dodge is just too easy. And they don't get hands on middies. And so the slide is almost forced. They have to slide because the separation is there's no resistance from how they defend dodges. And so I'm not sure what are they trying to play packed in. And so if you're trying to play packed in, you need to be defending, you got to really defend the dodge hard, because if you're trying to play packed in, you want to defend the dodge hard so that you don't have to see, you want to force them into making a tough pass, take options away. And so that you yourself are not forced into making a slide. Your shorty defends the dodge hard. You do not have to slide adjacent. And then when the midi who's made the dodge can't get past his man, what is his options are limited. He can't take a shot. All right, he's got to jam, he's got to jam the crease. Are they trying to press out more? Because they do press out more up top. But if you're going to press out more up top, you got to meet them there. Meet them at the point. Meet them at the ball. And they're just kind of standing back more. And I don't know. And Richmond was just guys were just dodging and getting 2 to 3 yards of separation by the time they're starting their dodge. And guys are forced to slide adjacent, and Richmond's just getting shots Richmond's shooting from way out, but they're hands-free shots. And that's bad news against a Penn State team that we know can get hot, always has guys who can shoot and get hot from the outside. They've got shooters on this team. Jack Amon, Hunter Cano, and they've got guys from the midfield. They've started to, as the season's gone, become less reliant on Trainer. That's the question: is can Cornell force Penn State to become reliant on Trainer? If they can, then I think Cornell will be in good shape, because it kind of puts the game in the hands of the Cornell long poles, which is what they want. That's the strength of the Cornell defense. But if we get the Cornell defense we saw against Richmond in that first half, that could be trouble.
That's the thing, because this is 2 games in a row now where they go down deep. Now, Richmond is a better team than Hobart, but I think fair to say that Penn State probably on paper at least not significantly, but a better team than Richmond.
They have a better offense.
No, for sure. But in terms of a complete team, Final Four type thing, I think Penn State edges it. I don't know if you want to get down 5-6 against Penn State, because that could go to 8-9. What they did last year.
Yeah, Penn State's not scoring. Penn State will score 20 on you.
They'll score until they can't score no more. I mean, when the final whistle blows, they
have an extra gear.
And they're so efficient, and it's not the volume shooting thing that we kind of talked about with Georgetown. They may just be up 6, and they only take 9 shots, and to start out the game. And we've seen that. I remember just games last year, especially 2023, where it was 13 goals, 18 shots, or even a better percentage. And it's just they're just not missing. And so my main point is this is not a team that's not that Cornell will, but you can't be dancing like they have the last 2 days or not get burned, because if Penn State will just go on a run and not stop. So
yeah. On the flip side, this is really just how good is these Penn State, talk underrated, the Penn State long poles, Parnham and Ross. This is a game we really get to see matched up on the Cornell attack, which might be the best in the country, with Kirst and Long and Goldstein down there. You do wonder. Cornell's offense is going to keep going, and they have a degree of what Princeton had. Princeton had on Penn State made great adjustments, and that's what in the Princeton game, and that is to a degree what they always do. They always find a way to bounce back and adjust. A big part of that was faceoffs. To somewhat, I think being able to, they racked up a big possession advantage against Princeton, but man, Princeton's middies caused them some problems in terms of running by them. And Cornell has some of that as well. I don't think their midfield is as good as Princeton's. That's a bit of a difference. Cornell's got a better attack than Princeton. Princeton's got better middies, but there's still guys there. Firth, Andrew Dalton's had a solid start to the year. If Cornell, as good as I think Alex Ross is a great player, but are you shutting down CJ Kirst? And then if you do have to support at all, man, then you get into Cornell does have that. Cornell has some of that. Like do you have enough poles? Do you have enough support on those guys? And are you? This is really again a kind of medal of how improved Kobe Baldwin is on faceoffs, and this improved Penn State faceoff unit. Can you compensate for it the way they did against Princeton? So definitely feels like a game Penn State will need for ASEAN. Wyatt Nuss for Cornell on the other end. It's early season game in Ithaca. So you always feel it's going to be high of 32 on Saturday, but no inclement weather. I feel goals. It feels like it's going to be. I think it's going to be a high scoring game. Is my gut. That's kind of what I'm feeling. I think these are two teams who got good offenses, and it's not that I don't think the defenses are bad. I mean, that's Penn State, I think, has more potential answers, but do you have the answers for Penn State are up against might be unanswerable. Do you answer CJ Kirst? Can you answer Long? If you can, then Alex Ross is one hell of a player. There's because that's the issue is if Penn State can't shut down Kirst, that's the strength of Penn State team is in the close defense. And if you don't shut down Kirst, then I think their shorties are a bit more of a weakness. And then I think Cornell can really start to rack them up. So yeah, I think it's gonna be a high scoring game.
Last game of previews, Hopkins traveling up to Syracuse to take on the Orange. Kind of want to talked a bit about this game in terms of importance. I think big game for Cuse in terms of just getting a solid win on their ledger. The season hasn't gone horribly. Losing to Maryland isn't the worst thing in the world, but that Harvard loss has definitely taken some shine off of this Syracuse team that was thought by many as a potential Final Four team. Definitely highly rated in most polls, including ours. And so I don't feel like it's panic time at all for Syracuse, but just in terms of just turning things around. They beating Utah was good on the road last week. Beating them by 10. Definitely, sure. Got the memories of the Maryland and Harvard game a little bit easier to kind of forget once you get back on a win and stuff like that. The mood change. But yeah, this is probably circled on many Cuse players' calendar when the season schedule came out. Hopkins is obviously one of their biggest rivals, playing at home. I'm sure the Dome will be rocking. I think Gabe was kind of alluding to that. He's maybe looking towards this game in a recent radio hit. He was talking about I would like to see a little bit more fan attendance at Syracuse games. And nothing better than coming out to boo the Blue Jays. this Sunday at 2:00 on the ESPNU. I can't even remember the last nationally
Syracuse Hopkins is
televised.
back to
Yeah,
ESPNU, and we're back
I
to
remember
nationally
this.
televised games.
They were using this to like sell ESPN Plus. It was always on ESPN3. Then it was essentially the ACC network, and finally just back on like actual TV.
I don't even think it was on ACC. I don't even think it was on ACC Network.
Was it always just ESPN3 then, or
It's been on ESPN Plus because one, this is earlier than it's been. This is the earliest This is earlier than it's been in. Or was it this same spot last year too?
It was usually this time in March. It may be like a week later than last year.
Usually wasn't a week later.
Yeah, it's usually like St. Patty's Day weekend, as Ryan always says.
Yeah, so then like it would run up against like the conference tournaments.
Yes,
and it would get sandwiched by like having no TV time slot. All right, so if you can talk about the game, and I will research the last time this game was on television.
Yeah, I gotta believe it's
been a while, but I will research while you go ahead and.
I mean, I think there's good marquee games like right up there with Hopkins, Maryland. UVA, Syracuse. Also, just just a major game. Like this is the game that people look for. When the schedules start coming out. This is a game that we've had so much fun with. Just off the top of my head, the 2018 game, Syracuse Hopkins like 18-7. Syracuse, and it was just such a joy because Ryan was just like cyberbullying me for over a year because of a person beating Hopkins in 2017 after like literally the days after I made Hopkins a number 3 team in the country in that poll just before that Princeton game. But then from the 18-7 Hopkins. But for that to turn around, I remember that tweet. I was like, God is real with a tweet of a screenshot of that game. Hopkins up, 18-7 with like seconds left. Yeah, just so many amazing moments. I'm trying to remember, was this the 2011 game that ended in controversy? Kyle Wharton goal was disallowed in the overtime period when it was obviously a goal. Syracuse ended up winning 6-5, I believe, in like double overtime. Yeah, I think it was in 2011 because that was a surprise to a lot of people because Hopkins was, kind of.
Oh, hang on. It looks like 2022. It was on ESPNU.
Oh, 2022?
Yeah. I guess because both teams were bad that year, we don't remember it.
Was that the game?
It was on Sunday.
They came late at halftime?
Or was it 2022? That was your Syracuse went 4-10. It was Gates' first year. That was the year Hopkins. That was your Hopkins went 7-9. That might be the reason we don't remember it. Yes, there you go. That was 2022 was Sunday at 4 p.m. on ESPNU. That's why Sunday they can't find the top for this on a Saturday, but on a Sunday, they can. But yeah, otherwise, the last couple years it's been on ACC Network Extra or ESPN Plus. 2019 it was on. I'm assuming it was at 1 p.m. on Saturday. That smells like a ESPN plus ACC Network Extra 2019.
I remember it was it because it was for a little while I couldn't watch it on the streamer on the TV. I had to like only be able to see it like on my phone because for some reason some deal with Comcast like they couldn't see those games like on the streamer app via the TV.
2018 was the 18-17 game you mentioned was on ACC Network Extra. 20.
Watch it be like the Kyle Wharton game. That's the last time it was.
It happened before that. It happened before. I think it might have been.
All
It
right,
might have been.
2019 ESPN announced the schedule. Hopkins. No, that's Ohio State.
There we go. I remember this one. 2017. 2016. 2016. Hopkins won at Homewood 11-10 in overtime on a Wilkins Dismuke overtime goal. That was in the rain at Homewood. That game was on ESPNU.
So for 2022, almost a decade ago.
So yes, so one out of the last. Yeah, so they went 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020. I didn't look up 2020. I imagine was the same. Yeah, I forgot they played in 2020. That one was. Yeah, it says ESPNU tape delay. So 4 straight 2017.
Tape delay doesn't count, Jake. I'm talking about.
No, I know. Yeah, no, of course. Yeah, it's just it doesn't on the Hopkins schedule. It just says ESPNU tape delay. It doesn't mention the, where it actually aired. So yeah, this game got kind of put behind the paywall for a long time. So only one out of the last 2017 to 2020, 2022. That's 5, 6. Only one of the last 7 had been on TV. So we're back. Syracuse Hopkins is back to airing on not televised games. I think this game will be a real. I mean, for Hopkins, it's a real test of. We talk about their defense, like the aggressiveness their defense plays with. They can be slide happy. This is a real test of that. Like we mentioned earlier, the goal with Syracuse is you make them beat you through dodging. Where are the dodgers, the guys who can beat you? So you put Scott Smith on Spallina, you figure he takes them away. That's what we said against like Duffy. Like you put Scott Smith on Duffy, and then that didn't happen because they became overly slide happy against Carolina, and they created offense for Carolina. And Carolina carved them up through Hopkins' defense. That's how they play. They want to slide. And there's benefits to this. They force a lot of turnovers. They force more turnovers than other defenses who are reticent to slide. They have been a much more dangerous transition team than they've been in the past couple of years. That's a part of that. But their defense absolutely, and then against Virginia, it was a similar story in the first half against Virginia, creating offense for the other team through sliding to guys they didn't need to slide to. And a Syracuse team, they dodge to pass. If you are going to Syracuse wants you to dodge to them so they can beat you with ball movement. If the Hopkins defense that we saw in the Carolina game in the first half of the Virginia game is going to get carved up by Syracuse. So they really need to be on it about timing the slides right. This is how Hopkins defense plays. You're not going to change who you are overnight for one opponent, but you have to be smart about when you go, and you can't give them the opportunity to find the pass and setting up an open guy. So I think this is going to really require a strong degree of restraint and caution out of the Hopkins defense, because this is a matchup that if it goes wrong, this is the offense that can burn their house down. if it goes right, as we saw in the second half against Virginia, like they can lock this offense down. There isn't a lot of guys on that offense who theoretically they shouldn't be able to stop. Defensively, they should be able to match up. And on the flip side, what really hurt them in this matchup a year ago was face-off play, where they figured to be stronger this year. Turnovers, clears, where Hopkins has been incredibly strong this year. We talk about Hopkins is not beating themselves. They're clearing at a very strong rate. They're not turning the ball over. Goalie figures, Syracuse, Ippoliti, McCool, who goes in goal. So these are kind of questions. Syracuse still should be, solid face-off with John Mullen, but like last year with Mason Kona was a real advantage for them. If I'm Hopkins, I really think Collison should be on the field every possession. And that's, I think for them, it's the kind of what Maryland did. Like body blow Cuse, the Cuse midfield. The Cuse defensive midfield. Run as many guys as you can. And Hopkins is trying to, has guys, they're trying to establish depth, like run at those defensive midfielders, body blow them again and again, and see if you can kind of take them through into that third and fourth quarter. And Hopkins has been a good fourth quarter team. Seems to be able to win some of these close games, but the Hopkins defense we saw against Carolina the first quarter against Virginia gets carved up by the Syracuse team. And there was some of that last year too in this matchup, where they created offense for Syracuse through the over-aggressiveness of the defense. So that's what they gotta watch out for.
Jake, let's pick some games. Goes on now.
All right.
Week 6 for us. Actually, pretty good week for pretty much everybody on the board. Adam Solis at 27. Jake, you're right behind at 17-10. Rise at 16-11. I'm at 15-12. But big 6-1 weekend last week for myself and Rye to kind of get back in position. Behind you and Adam. Jake, we'll start with the Patriot League. Lehigh at Navy. Who do you got?
I'm going to go with the midshipmen. I'm cautious, but I like how they are playing. I think that combo they got with Hayashi and Daly against the Lehigh offense that struggled to score. I think that's Friday night in Annapolis. Feel good about the mids.
I'm with you, Jake. I think Lehigh's actually been a tough team this year. Nice little upset victory they had over Villanova. Still think Navy is going to be in the hunt for maybe make an Army and be. Well, they already make the U's like miserable, but they may be in the hunt of making an Army and potentially Colgate slice miserable and may steal the regular season crown. That's even crazier. The first Patriot League game was actually last weekend. It's like February almost. But yeah, I'm gonna go with Navy here. Midshipmen gonna take it against the Friday.
All right, safe. Tam's Bowl. Big one. Can't wait for this one. Cornell, Penn State, Ithaca.
Tambroni Bowl. I think Coach comes back to his old stomping grounds and he makes it 3 in a row, man. I think he does it. I'm going with Penn State. Got no beef with Cornell. Love what they're doing up there. I just think maybe the old coach got their number a little bit, and that 20-9 spot that they dropped last year was at home, but the year prior, they beat them, and at Cornell, handedly, but by 4 goals. So this one, Jake, I'm going to go with the Nittany Lions.
I want to pick Penn State, but I did that Richmond thing for Cornell. I picked them. I tried to grab a W, and then pick them. It would have been big for me, and it didn't happen. I feel like it was I feel like it was God telling me that I need to ride this Cornell thing as hard as I can. So I'm going back on it. I'm just gonna do it. I've done this in the past. I just pick against Cornell. I'm just going through with it. I'm gonna see.
Pick. The Cornell's Final Four run was literally just littered with us. No,
I'm not feeling it. I don't like the vibe.
I don't say it at home. No, the Elite Eight. I remember that there was something about that. I was like,
Delaware. I picked Delaware to beat them. I really like what DeLuca's got going.
Look what they did in the first round. Yeah,
they beat Georgetown. Why can't they beat Cornell? So no,
I'm doing it again. Look what they did. No, I'm with you, dude.
It's like me. It's like me. Like what is it? Like those heist movies. Like I'm seeing this one through. So, and I think if I'm picking a high scoring game, if I'm seeing it as a high scoring game, I mean Cornell in a high scoring game feels like a pretty decent bet. So I'll go with the Big Red. But if Penn State does win, remember I did this under coercion. the coercion being myself. I coerced myself.
Jake, we travel up north as the Michigan Wolverines travel east to play the Harvard Crimson. Who do you have in this one?
I'm gonna go Michigan. I don't know. I didn't really feel it at all. And then Harvard defense is, I don't know. It worries me a little. And the thing for Michigan, offensively, their weaknesses I feel can this again, it gives them opportunities to score. Face-off plays hurt them, but Harvard face-off play also a weakness. The Harvard offense is, gosh, Jerry Byrne, he loves Coach Hutch up there. And Neil Hutch has done an amazing job with that offense. That performance they put up there in the Carrier Dome might be one of the best performances of the season. Losing 20 face-offs 28-4 and still scoring 15 goals. And if they can put up another big time number and get a W, to be really set them up well going into Ivy League play. I don't know. There is some worry I kind of have with the defense, so I'm gonna go with the Wolverines. I think and that defense did play really well against Duke, so I think there is something that they've got going there. I will pick the Wolverines.
Jake, I'm going with Harvard. I think maybe Michigan's kind of a little bit not overmatched, but just I think offensively, I think Harvard's going to pose some challenges, and I just don't know if they're going to be able to keep up. Michigan scored some goals against some teams, but they kind of been outside of the top 20 variety. That Duke game is a little concerning. The Duke only scored 8 goals, but Michigan scored 7. That's it. So I think Harvard's going to be able to pack a punch and they can maybe keep using this term, but escape velocity. If they can just get out of that gravitational pull of Michigan and trying to keep this maybe not a high scoring game, I think they may be able to tag them, and I'm going with Harvard. All
right, Safe. Big one for you.
I can't believe we put it on the board.
Well, man, we need this top 20 matchup, man. National television.
It's just like seeing an old girlfriend. It's looking great.
Walking by the coffee shop, get your bagel.
She's looking at. She wants to start it. She's just like Affleck and Jen Gardner.
Oh my god, dude! I can't believe I didn't mention that yet.
Spin in the block. Me and Ohio State. We're doing it again. Not yet. We're not doing it again yet. I'm going with Notre Dame, Jake. Again, just kind of like our bias self here. I need to see more. They got to prove to me that they're real this time. Show me love, like Robin was saying, the great 90s track. Yeah, I got nothing wrong with Ohio State. I mean, maybe put a little something on DK on OSU, but officially here.
I like how when you send she needs to show you love. You send a text anyway.
But officially, on our pure pick'em board, I'm going with the Fighting Irish. I just got to go with Corrigan. Got to go, reliability, and I see Ohio State, but not yet. One more week.
Yeah, it could be a crazy live show if Ohio State wins. I'm taking Notre Dame. Yeah, I think they were this team. It's been 3 years since they lost back-to-back games. I don't think it starts now. Too consistent back at home. I think they'll play their best game of the year so far, the clean game. I don't think Ohio State has the punch yet to match them. So give me the Fighting Irish. All right, say big one. Last one.
It's not the homer in me, but I'm going for Hopkins.
I'll take your word.
I just think the Jays are playing, the North Carolina game aside, I think the Jays are playing pretty well offensively and defensively. And I think that, I just think that they got it. I'm a little concerned, but Syracuse are kind of noted on our buy and sell part. I'm kind of a hold on the Cuse. I think they can score some points, but, I think if Spallina gets put in the box, I like what you're talking about, Leo. Like, that may be an idea that I hope Syracuse doesn't employ, as the Hopkins fan in me, because I think if they're able to keep that attack quiet, which I think, or contain, which I think that they can do, I think Hopkins should be able to score on this Syracuse D. The Utah game, they held Utah to, I think they beat Utah by 10. I think it was 15-5. So they held up to 5, but giving up 15 to Harvard, and what they give up to Maryland, 14, 13. I forget the final.
No, that was 11.
11, yeah, 11. I think this Jays team is going to be able to put up some points, and I can kind of see Hopkins winning, a close 1 or 2 goal game. But I'm going with the Jays on this one.
I agree. I think that Hopkins in a game. I think what Hopkins has done well this year benefits him in this game. I think Hughes just kind of gives you some openings. That's sort of the way they play. And last year, Hopkins played into that. Failed clears, turnovers. Cuse won the face-up battle. It opened it up into a more wide-open game. When you get into a wide-open game with Cuse, their mistakes are okay because they thrive on being wide open. They're a highly skilled team. They will play on the edge in order to take advantage of the chaos. I think what Hopkins is doing this year, just how well they're clearing the ball, lack of turnovers they're committing, very buttoned up. I think if they don't give Cuse anything, it sort of what Maryland did to them. I think it really heightens the mistakes that Cuse makes. Again, Hopkins they've got to be on it defensively. You can't give Cuse offense. If you give Cuse offense, they will make you pay. This is a team that, as we saw, they can stroke when you tighten things up for them. They may tighten up themselves. With when you make it tight inside and you force the behind the backs and things like that. Yes, but when you give them space and you allow them to pass that ball around, all of a sudden that becomes those behind the backs and everything like that. That becomes their superpower, because all of a sudden you're chasing them and they have the whole field to work with, and you're chasing the ball, and the ball is always ahead of you. And that's when they're really going at it. So Hopkins has to be on it about that. That I can see that being a problem for them in this game. If it becomes too much of a problem, Cuse will win. It's the Dome. That's the thing. Cuse is always better in the Dome than they are on the road. The Dome is a goal. It's absolutely a goal or two advantage. And so that's a big factor in this one. But I do think Hopkins will be able to pull it out. Probably another 1-goal game. But they've thrived well on those, so I think they'll pull it out here.
Great. I think they're just more comfortable. They're pretty comfortable in that type of game. They don't pull it out. Obviously, there's no talent against example, but I agree with it. Jake, I think that wraps it up for this week.
Yeah, good stuff.
Fun week 5 that we had. Looking forward to a week 6. Soft launch of St. Patty's. I know some people are probably going to be over in this weekend, and probably daylight saving. Nope, not a plural or a possessive. I will find you if you say savings on Twitter, and I will make a point of it. But literally, the coworker of mine hates daylight saving time, and I understand why. If I tell him, I was like, I kind of like. He's like, what do you like? Changing the hours. I was like, well, I kind of like have my clocks at home, like always fast, because I don't like to be late. So I'm like, I'm already, 1 hour ahead, pretty much. And then I was like, but the real reason is like, I love making this joke. And anytime anyone says savings, I try to correct him on Twitter. He started dying laughing. Because he thought it was going to be over, because he's like, didn't Congress change it? I was like, well, one house did, but the Senate didn't, and it wasn't signing a law. It's happening. Because I remember I kind of warned, I was like, oh, hey, you got to fall back, or the fall. He's like, what are you talking about? I was like, what do you mean? It was like, it happens every year. It's like, oh, I thought they changed the law. I was like, just we can pass the House, but never pass the Senate. So here we are, one more time. Yeah, I hear you. But it will be good to not see sunset before 7:00 after this weekend. Literally, that's when this is the best time of year.
For sure. All right.
So shout out to all the Catholics. Happy Ash Wednesday. My mom Catholic.
Thank you for watching the Power Hour. Thank you for subscribing. A lot of support on the last video. You can go out there, subscribe now. Crosse Commission on YouTube. Throw us a like on the latest videos. If you haven't already, we will be back Saturday there as usual, live, probably again pretty early, somewhere around, I'd say 5-ish. That's been a pretty good time for us. So join us. We'll break down all the action from Friday and Saturday, and maybe get Ryan's thoughts ahead of Cuse-Hopkins. And also, we might lead you right into Princeton or Rutgers. So we got Saturday Night Lacrosse this weekend. We always like that. It's good for our brand here. So we will leave you with that. Thank you for supporting. Follow us on Twitter at college_cross. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Put notifications on so when we're going live. Join us. It's been a lot of fun. Having people in our live chat, following along. Come hang out with us Saturday in the evening, 5:00 or so. Stay hydrated. Thank you, Mr. President.